Hemen Gupta was a filmmaker with a difference. He was an active freedom fighter participating in the civil disobedience movement of 1930, which led to his arrest and jail for 6 years. On his release, he became the private secretary of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and kept his patriotic fervor going. It was in the late 30s that Gupta joined Calcutta's famed New Theatre Studio and eventually made two films that reflect his own personal toil and individualistic observation of the country's freedom struggle. Gupta ultimately migrated to Bombay and made Hindi films there. The two Bengali films in question are Bhuli Nai in 1948 and Biallish in 1949. While the former was set against the failed attempt to partition Bengal in 1905 by Lord Curzon, the latter depicts more cruelly the atrocities and eventual resurrection of a village as part of 1942's Quit India movement. The film's name Biallish is the Bengali equivalent of the number 42. In Bengali cinema, that phase in the last few years of the decade which witnessed independence was marked by several attempts that showcased freedom struggle. Bengal being one of the most affected regions in India's history of freedom struggle, it is not unlikely at all. Films including Joyjatra, Chattogram Ostragal Lunthon and Biplobi Khudiram fanned the anger of the race, which was still coming to terms with independence, setting aside the pains of partition it had to deal with. Unlike a few others where the films were based on either individual person or specific events, Biallish was a fictional approach to demonstrate the effects of an anti-colonial movement which was inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's nationalist revolution. The final sequence, in its limited technical scale, reminds us of Odessa step sequence in Sergei Eisenstein's Battleship Potemkin, made in 1925. The aged activist in Biallish, bespectacled as was in Eisenstein's, carries the flag like a child to be protected. She leads a march to the police station and is killed eventually. The unarmed procession marches on, undeterred. On the stairs of the police station, we find the major's lengthening shadow as his police force, much like in Potemkin, refuses to open fire on its fellow citizens. The major is crushed literally, his ego and pride squashed as the villagers and the ones in the police force join arms in raising the national flag. Extremely theatrical and melodramatic, the film exposes the insights of police atrocities not only on the male nationalists but also on their female counterparts, on the old and the young alike. Unfortunately for Gupta, Biallish ran into a bigger trouble than Bhuli Nai at the hands of the censor board. Bhuli Nai was during the British rule and the ban on it was probably not unexpected. For Biallish, Gupta envisioned the depiction of a significant event that too, which was relatively recent, would face no hurdle in an independent India. The censor board refused permission for Biallish, citing it to be a film that excited passion and one having indecent scenes. Beneath the vague reasons lurked an uncomfortable truth. The first Indian Commissioner of Police of Calcutta was S.N. Chatterjee, who was the head of wartime administration of Midnapur district. It was believed that his unholy role and disastrous involvement during the 1942 movement had been fully exposed in the film for public examination and moral scrutiny. The major difference of Biallish with other films before it with patriotic theme lies in the fact that in this film, the major villain in the form of a major was an Indian. The purpose in censor board's objection probably laid in the possible repercussions on prevalent perceptions of the army and the police system. It must be borne in mind that the new government retained most from the police and the military of the colonial administration. The root functionaries were unchanged. The new system, if the case be, may resort to similar excesses, a fear that revealed itself as truth in 20 years with the Naxalite uprising in the same Bengal. When the film was finally released 4 years since independence, there was a growing anti-Congress sentiment sweeping the country. The general mood of unrest and betrayal was prevalent. The passion for the 1942 event waned in the people's mind. In Bengal, the problems were manifold due to the partition of the state and a huge influx of refugees. The biggest leader of its race during the freedom struggle, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, was missing. Rumors of his death and hiding were raging with equal ardor. Bengali race needed a soothing balm for its wounded soul. More importantly, Bengal needed to laugh, to forget the tragedies and loss of a bitter independence. Obvious enough, the early part of the 50s was decorated with comedy films in the language, Borjatri, Pasher Badi, Patri Chai, Ora Thake Odhare, and others. And with Nirmal Desh Sade Chuattor in 1953, the decade of the 50s opened the possibilities of social romantic drama with the rise of Bengali cinema's finest couple, Uttam Kumar and Suchitra Sen.